Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story will make you giggle. In short, stupid employers playing stupid games get stupid prizes. And our OP went on paid vacation for a month, which sounds good to me. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Delusions of grandeur. I worked as a lettings agent for a year after leaving the police, and always joked with clients that I chose the job because I'm used to being hated. I was smashing it out, highest figures in my office and the region for months at a time. Was I a hard seller? No. I'd legit say, guys, I'm not going to patronize you. You know what a toilet is. Take a look round. I'll be here. It worked. Anyway, the sales agent was lazy as F and couldn't be arsed, so I started to sell properties too. I shouldn't have done, but the company was losing business because of this guy. I asked for a promotion to the sales team and got called to see the managing director. He basically gave me a huge telling off, saying it wasn't my place to sell properties when I'm a letting/rental agent. He even said I had delusions of grandeur, and if I thought I was too good for the job to leave. I handed in my month's notice the next day and accepted an offer from a competitor that had been trying to pinch me for months. Better pay, less hours, higher commission. I'd only stayed out of a sense of loyalty. HR put me on paid leave because they were scared I was going to steal landlords. According to my friend who still worked there, the branch's figures practically vanished overnight. And our second story. Office Queen Bee complains that the free food brought in by a colleague for their birthday isn't good enough. Where I worked, it was common for people to bring in treats for the rest of the team on their birthday. It wasn't a policy, they didn't have to, but for the most part, everyone on the team got along, so usually did bring in something to share with the team, which they paid for out of their own pocket. One of my colleagues, who I'll call Tom, brought in a lot of food. Normally, people would just bring in a box of donuts or something, but he decided to go big with a great spread with cupcakes and sandwiches and other sweet and savory party foods. Everything was delicious. Mindy wandered over and inspected the food, and the first thing out of her mouth is, "Ugh, this stuff is so cheap. There's nothing I like." We tell her it's free. If she doesn't want it, then don't have it. It's not like she paid for it. She then started to pick up the food packaging, examining it with an expression on her face like she was examining dog crap or something. "There's nothing vegetarian here," she then said, slamming the last box of mini sausage rolls down. Before his birthday, Tom had gone around the office asking anyone if they had any dietary restrictions, just to be safe, and everyone, including Mindy, had said no. Mindy went on a tirade about how it doesn't matter. Tom should have a vegetarian option, and he should have brought better food. There's no way she could eat this cheap crap. We pointed out the cupcakes were vegetarian, and she told us that wasn't good enough. This was not the first time Mindy complained about the free food brought in. A few months prior, one of our colleagues had brought in a box of donuts, and Mindy complained and whined, saying our colleague should have brought donuts from Krispy Kreme and not the cheaper chain bakery our colleague had bought them from. When everyone ignored her and had just started helping themselves to Tom's generous and delicious food spread, Mindy stormed off to go and tattle to our manager. Now, if you haven't read my previous story about Mindy, Mindy fancied herself the queen bee of the office. In her mind, she was perfect, and everything had to be done her way. She would also tattle on everyone over petty stuff like using too many staples or being a few minutes late, and literally a few minutes. And she was the sort who took note of when everyone went to the bathroom or went to get a drink and how long they were gone, and would tattle if anyone took what she considered too long. Worst of all, she was our manager's favorite, so she got away with a lot. A while later, our manager spoke to Tom and told him he should have had a vegetarian option to be more inclusive. Tom pointed out the cupcakes. Then our manager, with Mindy right behind him, grinning her usually B-word grin, said he should have brought in one sweet and one savory vegetarian choice. Tom, the more assertive of the team, asked him to point out the policy for this. There is no such policy. As I said, this was something we'd all chosen to do off our own backs. We didn't have to, so there was no policy on what to bring or how much we should spend. So our manager angrily relented, but said from now on, if we bring food in, we have to bring in one sweet vegetarian option and one savory. Mindy trotted off grinning, happy to have gotten her way. Again. After that, nobody brought in food on their birthday, which made Mindy furious. She tried to tattle to the manager and say that by not bringing in food, we were bullying her. Our manager tried to pressure us into bringing food in, but we all refused. And he knew there was no way he could force us to bring in food. A good thing was spoiled because one person didn't like the free food offered and felt she was entitled to something better. Later, we got a new manager who had zero patience for Mindy's shenanigans, and this was one of many BS policies she scrapped. And so after, we were able to bring food in to enjoy together. Mindy's obviously terrible, but your manager sucked too for giving in to her. And our next story. Take the week off and make it seem like the job won't be there. Okay. Sincerely, the only employee. My husband once worked for a pool table moving/repair company. It was small and it was just the owner and him. The owner had a hard time finding people to work for him long term, which was a difficult situation for him because it took a lot of time and effort to train someone. So my husband was a good worker, always showed up on time, always worked hard, and learned the trade easily. He never took time off, but did get PTO. My husband hurt his back on a pool table move. He asked for a day off, and the owner got very upset about it. He had no backup person. So if my husband didn't work, he couldn't make money. Well, the owner got mad and said to take the whole week off, and then maybe I'll call you next week. The owner could be childish, and I think it was his way of trying to exert control and to show to my husband that he was disposable. After a bit of back and forth, my husband asked to use all of his PTO since this move would basically screw us money-wise. The owner did end up giving it to him after he cooled down. Well, my husband said F this and started his own company with that week off. He'd already been doing side jobs, but decided to go full force since the owner made it seem like his job could possibly be done for after this week off. After the week and a weekend, the owner reached out to start work again. My husband then told him, no way, he was already doing his own thing. This made the owner super pissed. He asked for my husband's work shirts back. Who wants to wear some guy's old work shirts that he super sweat in? And my husband said, okay, when I get around to collecting and washing them, I'll let you know. The owner freaked out and threatened to call the police if he didn't give them to him that morning. So my husband was pissed, put them all outside and said, pick them up then. Fast forward to yesterday, more than a year later, when my husband ran into him at the park during our kid's birthday party. Ends up his whole business went down after my husband left. He tried to have his son work with him, but he couldn't do what was needed. Then had some health issues happen, so he couldn't train a new person. He didn't even apologize for threatening to call the police over used work shirts, just told my husband he had no hard feelings. My husband now makes in a day what took him a week at the pool table job. My husband can be loyal, and he was only sticking around for this guy. He was able to really grow into his own after leaving that job. I'm so thankful that owner was an a-hole and pretty much pushed my husband to be his own boss. A smart owner would have partnered with your husband. Alas, this guy wasn't a smart owner. And our last story. Entitled OG Karen Sues My Parents for $1 million. This tale harkens back to the early to mid-90s, spanning 2 years or so. When I was 6, we were in my dad's car coming home from work/daycare. My brother was 10 and a half. We were in the back seat of a 2-door Mazda. We were fighting in the back seat while my dad was stopped at a red light. He turned around to swat both of us, again early 90s, to make a stop. His foot slipped off the brake and we rolled forward into the car in front of us. My dad says my brother asked if we hit something. Both cars pulled off in the shopping center, and this lady goes into full-on hysterics in her car, demanding an ambulance, and when the paramedics arrived, insisted she needed a neck brace and a backboard. My dad saw the writing on the wall and stayed behind to make sure the police got his full side of the story then. And then the first thing he did, after telling my mom, was call the insurance company to tell them what happened. They had people out the next day to take pictures of the car and take my dad's statement. Sure enough, not long later comes the lawsuit. $1 million for crippling this woman for life. Thus began a 2-year-long battle with lawyers over that stupid fender bender. I know it took a long time and that my dad often ranted about how she rejected the first settlement offer, $30K, and then later the second offer, $50K, because she was a greedy, lying bee and wanted a full court hearing. By the time we got to court, my parents had separated, but since they were married at the time, they were both on the hook for the money if they lost. I was too young to go to the hearing and was promised it'd be long and boring anyway. It was long and boring, right up until Karen herself got up to the witness stand to give her version of the wreck. First off, she used a walker and wore a neck brace to get to the stand, and then, to sum it up, she was innocently waiting at the red light when she checked her rearview mirror and saw a great big white truck barreling towards her, and she just knew there was no way it'd stop in time, so all she could do was brace for impact. My parents perked up at that, as did their lawyers. They got out a set of pictures of a blue 2-door Mazda and showed them to the woman and asked if she recognized the car in the photographs. She said no. The lawyers showed the photographs to the judge and jury and explained that this was the car that struck Karen. Pictures taken within 24 hours of the accident. To hear my parents, the jury did a spit take. But these were two adults who were gloating, so take it with a grain of salt. When the dust settled, not only did Karen not get her $1 million, but she ended up having to pay the attorney fees, lost wages, and daycare costs incurred as a result of the lawsuit. And that was how we got a free trip to Disney. Hey guys, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.